go ahead and open up to the beginning here of your Bible, and we're going to start in Exodus chapter 32. I thought this was appropriate on Father's Day. I ain't even said anything yet. I don't know why you're chuckling. Even more appropriate after I spent a weekend by myself with three of ours looking at three times. If my count is right, it's three times in Israel's journey from Egypt until the time that they conquered the land of Canaan in the book of Joshua. There's three different occasions where God says, "I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him," or at least I want to kill him. And I don't know about you, but I heard that a lot growing up. uh, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to, they'd say at my house growing up, they'd say, "I'm going to string him up by his toes and teach him a lesson." And sometimes you just want to do that. But God did it. And I think that's kind of interesting. I had this idea concept running around for quite some time, and quite frankly, I forgot it was Father's Day, but I think it's appropriate. Look at the first one in with me in Exodus chapter 32, and we're gonna do a couple of things with each of these. We're gonna set the scene as to why God wants to kill him, and then we're gonna read what God actually says. So we're gonna begin in Exodus chapter 32, and this is the first account of when God says, "I'm gonna kill him." Of course, you are probably familiar with Moses going up on Mount Sinai, getting those 10 commandments, spending that time with the Lord, and that's what we see here in Exodus chapter 32. This is the interim. While Moses is up on the mountain, this is what happens. When the people saw that Moses, Exodus chapter 32 and verse 1, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." That's what sets the stage for what is about to come. Make us gods who shall go before us. I don't even know how that phrase works. Make us gods who will go before us. But this is where God says what he says, beginning in verse 7 on through verse 10. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down, for your people whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now, therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation out of you.'" Now, it's interesting. You're going to notice this as we move throughout this lesson. But I believe in each one of these, the promise that God says, "I'm going to make a great nation out of you, Moses. I'm going to get rid of these people." And it's kind of interesting. But notice a couple of things before we dive into this lesson. Leave me alone, right? Verse 10. God tells God tells Moses, "Leave me alone." I think the ESV translates, "Let me alone." It's like God is telling Moses, "Back up, man. Watch this. I'm gonna get rid of every single one of these stiff-necked people." But what provokes God to this point? What what led them there? Well, I think there's a key word in verse 1 that you need to pay attention to. Because in chapter 32, verse 1, it says, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain. Where is Moses? Now, if we put together a couple of verses, now we're going to see in Exodus chapter 24 that he was up on the mountain for 40 days. 40 days and 40 nights. So here is Moses, and you remember the scene as we arrive at Mount Sinai, the presence of God, and it looks a whole lot like the TV. This awful storm on top of the mountain and the thundering cloud, and it says, it is so scary as the trumpet, the blast, it says, they were so afraid. They were so afraid. They said, Moses, please go up on our behalf. I tremble with fear. That's what Moses, I tremble with fear. This was terrifying sight. So Moses goes up into the mountain, into the storm, and he's gone for over a month. 40 days. 40, he's gone. He let them up out of Egypt, and now he's disappeared into a storm. Of course he's gone. He's got to be gone. Now, if you put yourself in those shoes, you can understand. We can get there, can't we? We got to do something. Aaron, Aaron, do something for us. Make us a God. I don't care what you do. We got to have some type of leader. Moses is gone. 40 days. And you put that together with Deuteronomy chapter 9 and verse 9, where it says that he was 40 days and 40 nights without food or water. That's incredible. That doesn't even make sense. It's not even humanly possible, is it? 40 days, 40 nights, up in the storm, no food, no water. What brings them to that point where God says, back off, Moses, I'm going to kill him? I think they forgot in all this storm, this whole scene, I think they forgot about God's provision. I mean, I don't think that they remembered that God is capable, right? That God is capable of all these things that they have already seen. They forgot that God can provide for them. They began to focus on Moses rather than God. Do you see that? Because Moses was the one that was delayed. You look up at the mountain, and obviously God is here. So they turn to Aaron and they say, you got to make for us gods. No, God is here. But they had begun to focus on Moses, and they had lost focus on God. And I think not only just the focus, and Clay, I know I'm messing you up big time up there, and I apologize for that. Not only had they lost focus, they had also forgotten. I mean, here we are. We're probably months, maybe, away from all the things that they have already experienced. Now, if you turn back in Exodus, you're going to see some of the things that they know, right? They know about the Passover. They heard the cries in the middle of the night for the firstborn. All the Egyptians, everybody who didn't have blood on the door frame, everybody, somebody's dead. In every single house, somebody is dead. Except the Israelites. They forgot about that. They forgot about this pillar, the cloud that led them, right? A fire by night so they could travel by night. How do 2 million people, how do they travel in the middle of the night? Well, it's this fiery cloud. Doesn't even make sense. They forgot about Pharaoh. Here's Pharaoh chasing them, got them cornered at the Red Sea, they cross on dry land. As they go through, as they go through on dry land, the waters come crashing in, the chariots come floating up on the seashore, and here come the dead bodies. They, I guess they forgot about all that stuff. Or as they begin to wander, they finally arrive at some springs, and we call this place Meribah. The only problem with this spring is the water was gross. You couldn't drink it. And then God changed all this water for a couple million people, made it drinkable. Did they forget about all that stuff? And then, of course, we've got the manna. And then Moses goes up on this mountain and holds up his hands, and they defeat a nation, the Amalekites. Have they forgotten about all this stuff? And they have the audacity here in verse 1 to say, Aaron, you got to make for us gods. No, God's been with you this whole time. God's always been there. And I don't know how long it was, but here we are at Horeb, Mount Sinai. This is the very mountain where Moses struck the rock and water come rushing out. Where is God? I guess they forgot. So God says, let me alone that my wrath may burn. I'm going to kill them. They had, I guess, forgotten that God had provided. They didn't trust God to provide for them. Moses, he's gone. They forgot everything that he had done. Look at the second one with me. As we think about the power, they didn't trust in the power of God. In the book of Numbers, all right, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. We're in Numbers. Numbers chapter 14. Numbers chapter 13, we're finally at the land of Canaan, the land that was promised to Abraham years and years and years ago. We arrive at the borders and we send 12 spies over there. Spy out the land, bring us back the good report. So they do that, and 10 of them come back with us. It ain't good, boys. It ain't good. That sets the stage for us here in the first 4 verses. That's what we're reading in Numbers chapter 14. Then all the congregation, after that bad report came back, then all the congregation raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, look at this. Would that we have died in the land of Egypt, or would that we have died in the wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives, our little ones will become a prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? Let's go back and be slaves. And they said to one another, let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt. I don't know about you, but I find that incredibly idiotic. That does not even register on the scale of sense and logic. So this is what God says. Verse 11, verse 12. Flip over there real quick. And the Lord said to Moses, here we are. How long will this people despise me? And how long will they not believe in me? Good question, God. In spite of all the signs that I have done among them, I will strike them with pestilence and disinherit them. And I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. Look at what their report says. 3 things in general, okay? Back up to chapter 13 and verse 28. What was so bad? This is what was discouraging. Verse 27 is a good news. We came to the land in which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey, and its fruit. But look at verse 28. However, that's where they went wrong, that word. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. Three things. Three things that he says. One, the people. Look at the people. The people who dwell in the land are strong. Those are strong people. And I just want to reach through the pages of the Bible, knock them on the head, and go, hello, you just came from the superpower of the world, Egypt. Are these people any stronger than the Egyptians? Still today, we are in awe of the Egyptians, aren't we? Are these people any better than the Egyptians? These people are strong. They didn't trust in God's power, did they? And not just the people, these strong people live in strong cities. The cities are fortified and very large. Hello, you just came from Egypt. Again, you came from some of the greatest cities that have ever been in all of the world. And you're worried about these new cities in this land that was promised to you? No wonder God says, I'm going to kill them. Here we are, hundreds of years later. They've been in captivity, more or less, slaves in each 430 years. Now they've come to the land, they've seen it, they've said it's great, they've eaten its fruit, and they are complaining. And not just that, the end of verse 28, the people are strong, the cities are strong. And on top of all that, here's the cherry. Besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. Now, who's Anak? Well, look at verse 33 and we get a little description here. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim. And we seem to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seem to them. Historically, the giants live there. These people, they're taller than we are. Their stature, possibly Goliath was a descendant of this genre of people. Look, guys, the land is great, beautiful. Cities are gorgeous, but the people are strong, the cities are fortified, and there's really tall people there. I don't think we can do it. Well, the truth is you can't, right? And we know that. Like you're not capable of doing it. I don't care how many people you are, you can't. But God can. You see, they had gone wrong in the same way that Samuel had gone wrong. When the sons of Jesse started appearing in front of him. First Eliab, man, the firstborn. Surely this is the one that God has chosen. Then God tells Samuel, don't look at the physical. Because God doesn't see in the same way that man sees. God looks at the heart. Man looks at the appearance. So the Israelites, they arrive and they look at the appearance of the land and they say, there's no way. But they forgot that they had a secret weapon. They forgot about God. Look at what God says. Their rebellion and their choosing to go back to Egypt, this is how God takes it. How long will this people despise me? How long are they going to hate me? And how long will they not believe in me? In spite of all the signs that I have done among them, in spite of all this. Watch out, Moses. I'm going to kill him. One more time. It's still in the book of Numbers. And here we consider God's people. They didn't trust in God's people. In particular, in Numbers chapter 16, we arrive at the story of what we commonly call Korah's rebellion. Dathan, Abiram, several other people, 250, if I remember correctly, 250 people rebelled against Moses and Aaron, and by extension, God. Let's set the scene here in Numbers chapter 16 in the first three verses. Now Korah, the son of Izhar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Pelas, son of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with the number of people of Israel, 250 chiefs, actually, of the congregation, chosen from the assembly, well known men. They assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. For in all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord? Listen, hear, Moses, Aaron, you're no better than any of us." Right? That's what they're saying. Isn't God the God of all of us? Why do you, Moses, why do you, Aaron, think that you're any better than any of us? That's what they're saying. And this is God's response. Verse 20 through verse 24. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Separate yourselves from among the congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." And they fell on their faces and said, "O God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin and you be angry with all the congregation?" And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Say to the congregation, get away from the dwelling of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." I'm going to consume them in a moment. Now, obviously, Aaron and Moses take that to mean that God's going to kill all of them. But that would be hard enough. But look at what happens the very next day. Korah and company, the earth opens up, consumes them, kills them. That's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey says. But look at the next day, because life continues in verse 41. But on the next day, all the congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses, against Aaron, saying, "You have killed the people of the Lord." What? The earth opened up and killed Korah, Dathan, Abiram, all those people who rebelled against God's people. And the accusation comes back to Moses and Aaron. "You have killed." I didn't open up the earth. Who do you think that I am? You have killed the people of the Lord. And when the congregation had assembled against Moses and against Aaron, they turned toward the tent, and behold, the tent of meeting, the tabernacle, and behold, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. And Moses and Aaron came to the front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Get away from the midst of this congregation." Again, same thing. "Get away from the midst of this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." And again, they fell on their faces. And Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censer and put fire in it from off the altar and lay incense on it and carry it quickly to the congregation and make atonement for them. For wrath has gone out from the Lord. The plague has begun." So Aaron saved Israel. He took it as Moses said and ran into the midst of the assembly, and behold, the plague had already begun among the people. And he put on the incense and made atonement for the people. And he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague had stopped. Now besides those who died, and those who died in the plague rather, were 14,700, besides those who died in the affair of Korah. And Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tent of meeting when the plague had stopped. You talk about a rough week. That's a rough week on the job. But twice God says, get away from this congregation. Get away from these people. I'm going to kill them. That's tough. Here is where they went wrong, at least in a couple of ways, in my estimation. They assumed that the authority with which Moses had came from Moses. They thought that Moses was acting on his own behalf. And nothing could be further from the case. Moses didn't have authority in and of himself, did he? In fact, isn't that, if we go back to the book of Exodus in chapter 3, isn't that where it all begins? There's this bush in the wilderness and it's not burning up, although it's on fire. God speaks from it. And the promise that God made there at the very beginning, with all these excuses that Moses makes, the first thing he says is, I will be with you. That's the key to all this. I will be with you in Exodus chapter 3, around verse 11 and 12, I believe. I will be with you. Moses didn't have authority intrinsically inside him. The authority with which Moses led was the authority of God because God was with him. Boy, don't we need that lesson today? When people lead us spiritually, the authority with which they have is not the authority because they are the person who's standing there. The authority that they have is the authority that they get from God as they lead according to what God says. That's what Paul said, more or less, in Romans chapter 1 and verse 16. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation. The gospel saves. Paul doesn't save. Apollos doesn't save. Nobody saves. It is the gospel that saves. They began to think that the authority that Moses had was coming from Moses rather than God. They also thought that they knew better than God. You've gone too far. They thought they knew better than God did. They thought that their wisdom was better than the wisdom of God. And boy, oh boy, did they make a mistake. Oftentimes I'll throw myself in this ring. Oftentimes I think I know better than God. When I make my own plans, when I try to do my own thing, go my own way. And boy, it never turns out the way that I want to. I'm reminded of Isaiah chapter 55, and maybe you are too. Verse 8, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, verse 9, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. God, in every single instance, every single time, 100% knows better than we do. Every time. 3 instances, as far as I am concerned, 3 instances when God said, watch out, I'm going to kill him. And every single time they deserved it. The golden calf, they deserved it. When they sent out the spies, they deserved it. Korah's rebellion, they deserved it. Would God have been wrong if he did it? No, he would have been justified, don't you think? You rebelled against God. I think God has full rights to rebel and to take vengeance. But I think every single one of these, if we could put a bow on it, all of them come down to this last idea. They did not trust God. The golden calf. They didn't trust God. the spies. They didn't trust God. Dathan, Abiram, Korah, they didn't trust God. And when they didn't trust God, God said, leave me alone. Back off. I'm going to kill them. Isn't that interesting? How important it is for us today to trust in God. Put all of our trust in Him. If you don't trust Him, if your life is not living, demonstrating a trust in Him, the invitation song's yours. Why don't you come as we stand and as we sing?